Hello, and welcome to the Passion Driven Pioneers interview series. I'm your host, John Channon, and today I'm joined by Caleb Schmidt, who is a partner with Duco Capital. Caleb, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks, John. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to our discussion. So, would you like to just kind of get us started with a brief background as to who you are, what you do, and then the business that you're in?
Yeah, for sure. I'm from Minnesota. I grew up down in Prior Lake, so Twin Cities area. Um, did my undergrad at the University of Minnesota. I was at the time I was very passionate genetics and neuroscience, and so I ended up doing a double major. And it was during that time that I figured out after spending a year and a half on a genetic screen that going the PhD route for neuroscience probably wasn't the path for me. I was a little disillusioned with having spent that much time for no results, and I wanted to figure out, hey, what can I do in the world that's going to make a more immediate impact? And so I ended up enlisting in the Navy. I wanted to be a Navy SEAL, so I took that leap of faith and made it through the selection process. Deployed to Afghanistan with Team 4. After my enlistment was up, I moved back here to Minneapolis, where I did my MBA at Paulson School of Management, which is a really great program, especially for veterans. There's huge veteran participation. 30% of the 2023 class were veterans. So
Oh,
here's my little plug for Carlson. I got paid to get my MBA, combination of the GI Bill and scholarship. So big advocate. From there, I went to Ecolab. So I worked in marketing at Ecolab in the institutional division, which was a really great, informative experience for me. I've worked with a lot of really great people and honed my business skills. You know, worked, I would say developed a knowledge of how to navigate a corporate environment. But it was during that time that COVID hit. I had my first kid March 8th of 2020, which was an interesting time to have a newborn baby. And I started thinking about what is it that I with my life? Is this is Ecolab the next 30 years the right thing for me, or do I want a little bit more? So I got together with a friend from business school, Ryan Albert, and we sort of put our heads together and identified what we felt like was a gap in the market, where in the private equity market, where there's this wave of retiring baby boomers that own businesses, who are at a point in their life where they're ready to sell their business and get out of the business completely. And a lot of private equity, especially at the lower end of the market, doesn't want to take the risk on the transition like that. And so they would like to see the owners stick around for 5+ years, which again, for a lot of owners, it's just not something that they want to do. So we decided, hey, if we can really lean into that, we could develop a strong network of CEOs who are ready to step into these businesses and help these transition these leaders out. We could be a little bit more aggressive with our valuations, and could be a way for us to break into private equity. And so that's what we did. I quit my job at Ecolab April of 22, and went a year no income with a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old, and I basically had to figure it out. And we were fortunate and closed on our first business April of 23, so in that year, and then quickly closed on our second deal June 23. And we've been managing those two businesses and our department.
that's really great. So, so take us back to kind of, what was that spark that you got that said, "Hey, I'm not going to be in the corporate world anymore, and I'm going to take this huge leap of faith with a friend of mine, essentially from business school." So what kind of was that initial spark really that kind of got you thinking about that?
Yeah, I think A couple things. I think, necessity is the mother of invention, right? I just was in a place where it didn't feel sustainable, and I really wanted to figure something else out. Just doing the math on what do the next 20, 30 years look like. I mean, there are very few spots at the top of these large uh, corporate, these large companies that I felt like people were making really, really good money, right? And so I wanted a little bit more for myself, and it felt like doing my own thing was probably the way to get there. I would also say that I'm somebody that I think I've just pivoted a lot in my career, right? From biology focus, pivoted to SEAL teams, and then did my MBA, was in marketing, and then a hard pivot into private equity, right? So again, very non-traditional path. I think that's just a part of who I am, and I am really comfortable with risk. My wife, not as much, but we worked through that. And, I think, and I shouldn't say not just risk, right? I mean, it's calculated risk, right? There have been a few times in my life where I felt like I just, I'm trying to figure out what's next. What am I going to do? And, I try on a lot of different hats, maybe I could do this, maybe, Bitcoin, what could it be? And, when I started talking with Brian, I just, I had such a clear vision on what this could be, and a path to get there. And I just really felt like it could work. And so it was kind of at that point, I was really able to throw myself completely into what we were doing. And it's something that I was passionate about, which I think, something you also have to.
So maybe just take a little time and explain for our viewers kind of how your business model works, right? Because my understanding would be you're essentially finding businesses to purchase. You're bringing somebody in to kind of run those. They're paying you back a little bit, but the end game is ultimately building up the valuation of these things to sell them again. Am I on target with that, or am I way off base?
No, yeah, I mean, you're close. I would say that, we're fortunate to be in a position where we don't have to sell our businesses, in a predetermined amount of time. We are what are called fundless sponsors. So we don't have a fund of committed capital that we're drawing from for our deals. When you have a fund, um, usually there are a lot of terms to that, right? And there's a mandate on the period for a company. So we don't have any of that. We raise our capital deal by deal basis. And so that just affords us a lot of flexibility. I think, our investors, are folks who don't, they don't want the cash back. They're that's just another problem. They have to go figure out what to do with all the cash they have, which is a tough problem to have. But they would prefer that we hold on to these assets, right? And cash flow. So but back to your question, that our model, the value that we provide, right, are getting out into the marketplace, finding business owners, right, who are open to a conversation about selling their business and trying to figure out how to transition their legacy, right, their company. And like I said, we've worked really hard to be a buyer of choice, especially for owners who are looking to retire.
So maybe talk a little bit about how you're connecting with some of these businesses and how you're kind of what types of things are you doing to network and find these types of businesses?
Can't give you all my secrets.
Well, yeah, don't say anything
No,
that
no, I'm joking. I think it's a, and this is something that I underappreciated when we started Duco, but just the value of the relationships that we're building and built. A lot of we spent a lot of time connecting with all different kinds of folks. And when we first started, I mentioned it was that first year of no income. We would talk to anybody with a pulse, right? Anybody breathing who would talk to us, right? And potentially connect us with somebody else, and, kind of go down the chain that way. I bucket, I've got about 4 buckets in my mind. I think about who we connect with and source deals from. One thing that we don't do is we don't do any cold outreach, which you'll see a lot of in the industry. Just picking up the phone, calling people, or sending out emails. For us, again, like to reiterate, it's relationship based. So, like I said, four buckets in my mind. The first being service providers, right? So we've got accountants, attorneys that we built relationships with, that have really strong relationships with, um, their clients, business owners, and then kind of your traditional investment bankers and brokers. Uh, we've, you know, maybe friends and family is another one, and then the fourth being the CEOs that we have relationships with, that are in our network, that are interested in stepping into businesses that.
Okay, cool. So talk a little bit about, what was it like getting the business up and going and up and off the ground? And, what was that work-life balance at that point in time? And then how does it compare with where you're at today?
Yeah, it's it was well, initially, I quit my job and I had a lot more free time. I was much more present for my wife and kids. But we quickly ramped up our networking schedule, right? So that was spending a lot of time doing coffee chats and getting in front of people, and like I said, building those relationships. Once we closed on our first business, everything kind of changed, right? It was, went from just solely trying to source deals to now actually managing a business. And fortunately, I am not the CEO of any of our companies. We hire CEOs, and so we don't run like day to day in the businesses, but there's still a lot to do from a perspective, which I knew nothing about. So there was a lot of just figuring it out, getting up to speed. I know, I appreciate our investors for, the patience that they've had as we've gotten our systems and processes down and reporting and stuff. So, now things are really starting to get busy. We may have to hire somebody here in the future to help me manage kind of all the things that we're doing. We're working on closing a couple new platform companies right now, and so that would bring our four, and then we have a lot of other add-ons for our existing portfolio. So, it's getting busier. It's harder for me to keep up that pace of networking that I've been doing prior, which is something, again, I didn't anticipate I would enjoy as much as I have. So if I go back to the beginning, it was kind of like, oh, I got all this time, I can breathe, very excited to be doing what we're doing, very nervous about how we're going to make money. And so it was just kind of, I'll always look back at it fondly, but it certainly changed.
Hey, I'm going to change the subject a little bit and let's talk about kind of the future, right? So what does Duco Capital look like out into the future? What are some of the future plans or goals that you might have for your business?
Yeah, that is, I'd say still in development.
Mhm.
But at a high level, the vision that I've got two other partners now. We brought on a third partner. His name's Paul Meyering. He's a very seasoned deal professional, and has brought just a ton of value to to our firm. I would say, we're hoping to continue to add a new platform or two companies each year. I mentioned hiring someone. I'm really looking forward to the point where we need to get an office, and we can put our name on the door and just have the permanence that provides. I don't think people ask, how many platform companies do you want to have in your portfolio? And I just don't think there's a number. I think you would look to, I want to build something that lives on beyond, right? I
Mhm.
think that's something that's important to me. And to do that, we need to start bringing in people. We need to have the deals, the portfolio that supports that. And then we need to start developing people. And so, obviously, right now I'm developing myself. We don't, but at some point, I really look forward to um, when that becomes part of my role, right? Is bringing up the next generation of folks that end up taking the firm over someday.
So in your industry, what are some of the things that you guys do to try to stay open to change and adaptable, right? as you mentioned earlier on, right, you had a tendency to really pivot a few times in your life and in your work world. But what are some of the things that you guys are doing to try to remain adaptable and open to change and innovative?
Hmm. That's a really good question. I can't say nothing comes to mind of what we're doing currently. I think it's in I know Ryan, I know I feel like I'm pretty adaptable, and my partners Ryan and Paul are just adaptable people, and I think it's something that, we looked for as we were feeling each other out. Hey, is this the right partnership? Um, I have a hard time pointing to something that we're that keeps us adaptable. I guess what we one of the things is we have a weekly call where we're looking at new deals and opportunities, and I would say on those calls, we really challenge each other, right? When we're looking at deals, and we're always challenging assumptions, because we've been really fortunate so far, sort of kicking over rocks that I think other groups missed, and finding opportunities that were passed by. And so I hope that's something that, as we grow as a firm and get bigger, we never lose that. That and the networking piece, I think, could really set us apart in the PE space, right? As if we were able to not get too fat and happy, right? And keep that hunger where we're constantly digging a little bit deeper than the other folks.
Oh, that's good. I appreciate you taking the time to answer that one for me. So recognizing that this show is really targeted towards people who are going to be in their first few years of business, or maybe budding entrepreneurs, do you have any final thoughts or words of advice you'd like to share with our audience today?
Yeah, I think my biggest advice that I give to folks that I mentored in the past, and like if I have a coffee chat with maybe an undergrad, is my advice is always to stay curious. I in my career so far, that's kind of been the defining feature, is and why I pivoted every few years into really dramatically different things, is I think that I just have an innate curiosity, and I wish more people had that. And I think it can be something that really can make you more successful, right? You talked about being adaptable. Well, if you don't have any curiosity about what another is doing, or how other people do things, then you miss.
That's great. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time today, Caleb.
Thanks, John.
Yeah, it
Thanks
was
for having
great meeting you.
me. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you taking the time and us connecting on this. Um, Appreciate you sharing your story with us too. And to everyone watching, I look forward to seeing you in our next episode.